Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's Rabbi Akiva Males. Today is June 19th, and this Shabbos we're going to be reading Parshas Shelach, and I'm here to share a Dvar Torah with you on Parshas Shelach. There's a $1 million question on Parshas Shelach that you'll see almost all of the Mefarshim are troubled by, and they suggest different theories for. And that's in this week's Parsha. We're going to read about that episode of the scouts, the Meraglim, the spies, you might say, that were sent into Eretz Yisrael to scout things out and come back with a report. Unfortunately, of the 12 that went in representing all of the Shvatim, only 2 of them, Yoshua and Caleb, remained loyal to Hashem and to Moshe. The other 10 came back with a terrible report. They complained, they demoralized Klal Yisrael, they got everybody crying how they wanted to return to Mitzrayim, and this was a terrible idea to venture forward into the land of Israel. And that's when disaster strikes. HaKadosh Baruch Hu decrees that whole generation of adult men will die in the wilderness, and it won't be until 40 years later that all the women who survived, as well as all of the younger generation, they will be the ones who will have stronger belief and trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu and God, and they will enter into the land of Israel. But at the beginning of the episode of the Meraglim, when Moshe is selecting them, the Pasuk tells us something fascinating. It says, Vayikra Moshe leHoshea ben Nun Yehoshua, that Moshe changes Hoshea's name, his trusted student, Hoshea, and he adds a Yud to his name. He calls him Yehoshua. And Chazal say here that it was a special tefillah by adding this Yud. He was bringing now the names of Hashem, that Yud and a Hey, into the beginning of Hoshea's Nun name, and this would serve as a tefillah and as a request, a bakasha to Hashem, that God should spare Yehoshua, that he should not fall into the evil ways that the rest of the scouts, Moshe already had his finger on the pulse, that something was wrong here, that Yehoshua should be saved from this. That's what his tefillah was, by adding that Yud, that extra letter to Hoshea's name, where from here on out, he is going to be called Yehoshua. So many of our commentaries are bothered by the question, why did Moshe specifically pick Yehoshua? Why did he just daven for him and for nobody else? Why did he change his name if that could have such power to save someone from falling in to a bad report about Eretz Yisrael? Why did he just select Yehoshua? So I want to share with you 2 fascinating sources. I was looking at my notes this week on Parshas Shelach because I remembered I had once found some great sources on this, and here are 2 that I want to share with you. So I found one was written by the Torah. We know that the famous Rosh, Rabbeinu Asher, so he had a son, and his son wrote the Torah Shulchan Aruch, which was the original format, which the later Shulchan Aruch becomes based on. The Torah was the first, I would guess you would say, codification of Jewish law, aside from the Rambam, and that the Simanim, the order that the Torah set up, that's actually what the Shulchan Aruch later follows. Now, we're familiar with the Torah. There's a parish in the Chumash called the Baal HaTurim. It was written by the author of the Torah. That's very concise and cryptic in many places. And there is a fuller commentary on the Chumash that's written by the Torah. And it's called Parish HaTorah Shalem. And there was another commentary aside from the Baal HaTurim. And he has a fascinating idea about why Moshe changed Yehoshua's name. I want to start by sharing this one with you. And he says as follows, very short. Let me read it to you inside. He says, Vayikra Moshe leHoshea ben Nun Yehoshua, that Moshe changes his name to Yoshua. Why? So he writes as follows, Lefi Apshat, Lekach Shina Shemo. According to the simplest meaning, I'll tell you why Moshe changed Hoshea's name into Yoshua. B'shvil sho yasar tzava b'milchemes Amalek. Yoshua was the general who led the Jewish forces out in their first war, when they fought Amalek, when they left Egypt. V'yatza lo kol ba'olam b'notzcho es Amalek. And word got out, word on the street was out there that there is this Jewish general by the name of Hoshea, and he inflicted incredible casualties on the Amalekim, on the Amalekite people, and therefore, Lakach Shina Shemo Shelo Yakiru. Therefore, Moshe says, we're going to change his name so the world will no longer recognize him. It's almost like the Witness Protection Service or agency, is that what's going on here is that there may be a bounty out on Hoshea's name. There could be artists' renditions hanging up in post offices all over the region saying this is a wanted man, and there's a bounty out for a reward for bringing in his head because of the damage that he inflicted on the Amalekim. Therefore, Moshe wants to make sure no one recognizes him. So he changes his name to Yehoshua, give him a name change, and now when they're on this mission scouting out the land, in the event anyone hears his name, no one's antennas are gonna go up. They'll say, oh, there's Yehoshua. We're looking for some guy named Hosea. He was a fugitive. He was a wanted man, and this would protect him. Fascinating. I never saw such an idea before. So several years ago, when I found that tour, I was so fascinated by that I wanted to share it with one of my Rabbeim. So I was very fortunate. I've told you on a number of occasions, I was very fortunate that my high school yeshiva years were spent at the Wisconsin Institute for Torah Study, yeshiva in Milwaukee, WITS, as it's often called. And I was zochai, merited there to have wonderful Rabbeim. One of my Rabbeim whose Chumash class I so enjoyed throughout high school was Rabbi Yitzchak Shapiro. And we've stayed in touch over the years. And every now and then when I'll find a good Maramakum, I'll share it with him. When I'm looking for a good source, I'll reach out to him. And I'll say, Rabbi Shapiro, have you ever seen anything on this? So when I found this tour a couple of years ago, I shared it with Rabbi Shapiro. And I think he liked it, but he said to me, he goes, Akiva, I'm going to share something else with you that I found. And that's what I want to now share with you this morning. Rabbi Shapiro shared with me another pshat that he found, fascinating pshat, on why Moshe changed Hosea's name to Yehoshua. So let's just say what this is going on. It's going on in Gemara and Sota. The Gemara and Sota picks up on a pasuk in this week's parsha. Now, when it talks about the group of the Meraglim and where they traveled around Eretz Yisrael, it says Vayalu b'Negev. They start from the south and they start to go up northern-wise into Israel. And then it says Vayavo ad Hebron. So it starts with a Lashon Rabim. It says Vayalu b'Negev. It's a plural. They started up in the south, started from the south going up. And then it says Vayavo ad Hebron, singular, that one person went to Hebron. So the Gemara is very sensitive to this. So the Gemara in Sota, Lamed Daled, says as follows. Vayavo mi boile. It should have said plural. Why is it Vayavo, that singular, he went to Hebron? So Amar Rava, Melamed shepiresh Kalev ma'atzas meraglim, that it was just Kalev. Kalev alone went to Hebron, and he went v'nishtatech al kivrei avos. He went to daven at the Ma'aras HaMachpelah. He wanted to daven. He saw where things were going. He saw the other meraglim, the other scouts had nefarious plans, and he decides that he wants to daven. He wants to ask for zechus avos, the merits of our ancestors, our forefathers and foremothers. So what does he do? He goes to the Ma'aras HaMachpelah to daven there. Bikshu alai, he says to the neshamas of the avos, Bikshu alai, please request me up in Shamayim, rachamim she'natzal matzas meraglim. Ask for rachamim, that I should be saved from this evil plot. So the Gemara says, Yoshua, what about Yoshua? Why didn't he go? Why was he so confident that he was going to be secure? Why did he not feel the need to go to Hebron to daven? So the Gemara says, Yeshua kfar bikesh Moshe alav rachamim. Moshe already did this. Moshe davened for Yoshua, Shinemar, because the pasuk said, Vayikra Moshe lo Hoshea benun Yoshua, that he changed his name from Hoshea to Yehoshua. Amar lo, this was a way of saying, Ka, God, Yoshiacha should save you, me'atzas meraglim, from the bad plans, from the evil plans of the Meraglim, of the other scouts. So that's why Yehoshua did not go to Hebron to daven, only Kalev did, because Yehoshua, Moshe already davened for him. So this raises the question, so no, why did Moshe only daven for Yehoshua? Why was he so in the front, centered in Moshe's mind, that when he's got to daven, he's got limited time before they go out, he davens for Yehoshua? Why did he hone in on Yehoshua and nobody else? So one of the Mefarshim who deals with this in the Gemara and Sota, if you find them in the Ein Yaakov, it's the Eitz Yosef. And from what I could tell in the parentheses, he's really quoting a longer piece in the Alshech. I didn't look up the Alshech, but I'm looking at the Eitz Yosef. And he says a fascinating idea, and this is what Rabbi Shapiro shared with me. Eitz Yosef says as follows. Moshe felt a very real and compelling need to daven for Yehoshua. Why? Because last week in Parshas Bahaloscha, we read about Eldad and Medad. Eldad and Medad were some of the Zakanim. We said, Moshe davened to Hashem, I can't lead this people all by myself. Please, I need some help. And Hashem picks 70 Shivim Zakanim that his presence will rest on them as well, and they will assist Moshe in managing the needs of Bnei Yisrael. And then it tells us that there were two of them, that there were Eldad and Medad, and they were Misnabim b'machaneh. They were prophesizing out in the camp. And then it says that Yoshua steps up. Vayan Yoshua benun misharis Moshe. Again, it's calling him Yoshua. His name wasn't changed until this week's Parshas Shelach. But again, it's telling us by the name we know him as. So then Moshe's trusted student, Hoshea, comes forward and he says, Mibachurav, he was one of his young men who was around Moshe. Vayomer Adoni Moshe kilaim. Lock them up, put them in prison for what they're saying. What were they saying? What were Eldad and Medad saying already? So Rashi quotes the Chazal, and I'll read it to you. It says, Lefi shoyu misnabim, what were Eldad and Medad publicly declaring? They were prophesizing Moshe Mace, that in our journeys through the wilderness, Moshe is going to pass away, Yoshua machnes es Yisrael la'aretz, and it's going to be Yoshua who's going to bring the Jewish people into the land of Israel. Yoshua sees this as an affront. He sees this as chutzpah to Moshe, so he says, Adoni Moshe, Kalem, lock them up, put them in jail for this. And Moshe says, no, Amocha, don't you worry. Halavai, everybody should be Nevi'im. That was Moshe's response. So the Eitz Yosef says, why did Moshe feel the need to daven for Yoshua? As follows. Moshe understood Yoshua is one of the Meraglim. If he should fail, if he should fall into sync with the other Meraglim and come back with a bad report, what will Klal Yisrael say? They'll say as follows: Moshe set up Yehoshua to fail. Moshe knows what happened. Moshe knows that Eldad and Medad were prophesizing, and they were saying that Moshe is supposed to die in the wilderness, and Yehoshua is going to lead him into Israel. And then what did Moshe do? He sent Yehoshua on that mission to spy out the land of Israel, knowing that it's going to come back with a bad report, and then all the Meraglim are going to die. And Moshe was doing that as a way to knock off his competition. He was doing that to knock off Yehoshua with the hopes that maybe Hashem will keep me in charge now that Yehoshua is gone. So Moshe was choshesh. Moshe was suspecting the tarumos. He's suspecting the accusations that are going to get slung at him, how people are going to shoot arrows into his back. So Moshe says, that would be such a chilul Hashem. No one's going to have respect for me anymore. No one's going to have respect for Hashem anymore as me as his agent. So therefore Moshe feels the need. I have to daven for Yoshua. Knowing what happened in Baaloscha, knowing that everybody saw that Yoshua was stepping up to their plate because he was upset about that nevuah about Moshe Mace and Yoshua machnis alaretz, and Yoshua's going to be the one to bring him into Israel. They're all going to suspect I set Yoshua up to knock him off. Therefore, I got to make sure, I've got to do everything I can to make sure Yoshua does not fail. I've got to make sure that Yoshua is successful in this mission, because otherwise there's going to be a tremendous denigration of how the Jewish people is going to view me, and in turn, how they're going to view me as Hashem's agent and obey and observe the Torah and all the mitzvahs. And that's why, according to the Eitz Yosef, who seems to be quoted the Alshech, that's why Moshe felt the need to step up and daven for Yoshua. Because if Yoshua was to fail, everybody's going to be pointing to Moshe and saying it was a setup. You set him up, Moshe. And therefore, to prevent that, Moshe has to do everything he can to make certain that Yoshua emerges from this experience not having spoken Lashon Hara about the land of Israel, and that he remains loyal, absolutely loyal to Moshe. So nobody will accuse Moshe, the Manig, the leader of the Jewish people, of having set up Yoshua to fail and to be destroyed as a way to preserve his own power. Absolutely mind-boggling. What I walk away from that is first of all, just a fascinating new shot. And why was it that Moshe felt so motivated to daven for Yoshua that he shouldn't fail in the episode of the Meraglim? That's one. But number two, this also opens a window. This gives us insight into what Moshe was dealing with all those years in the Midbar, all those years in the wilderness. Moshe had such sorrows for Klal Yisrael, despite the love, despite the devotion, 24/7, how he was working for the Jewish people. Despite all that, there constantly were people who were nibbling at him. There constantly were people who were attacking him, who were krechting, who were coming up with all sorts of complaints and saying terrible things about Moshe. We're going to read about that soon in Parshas Korach. That's just an example. But throughout those years in the wilderness, there constantly were people sniping at him. And that's despite, instead of having all the Hakaras HaTov appreciation they should have had to Moshe, in spite of all that, they were constantly sniping at him. And that was something Moshe had to deal with. And the amazing character of Moshe, with all that, he still loved Klal Yisrael. With all the garbage he had to deal with, he still found a way to love Klal Yisrael. I think this really, really helps us appreciate just what type of Lokam Yisrael Moshe owed, that there was no one as great as Moshe. We say that in Yigdal all the time. There was nobody as great, not just in terms of his nevuah, but how much he could love Bnei Yisrael despite all of the trash that was thrown at him. There's one more example of that, and I'll just share that with the last thing I'll share with you this morning. At the end of Parshas Baaloscha, last week we read about this, that Miriam and Aaron, they spoke disparagingly. And again, it's so slight what they said about Moshe and about his marriage, about his married life. And Miriam comes down with saras. Aaron tells Moshe, please daven for her to get her out of this predicament. If you don't do this and ask Hashem to step in, there's no way that we're going to get her out of this predicament. So the pasuk tells us, surprisingly, Moshe offers a very, very simple tefillah. All Moshe says is Vayitzak Moshe al Hashem lemor. Moshe cries out to Hashem, and what does he say? He doesn't give a very long tefillah at all. No long prayers. Kel na, please God, Rafan Allah, please heal her. 5 words. That's all Moshe said. Why did he offer such a short prayer? Listen to Rashi. Rashi quotes a Chazal. Rashi says, why such a short prayer? Why didn't he spend a little bit more time davening for his beloved sister? He didn't want Klal Yisrael to make the following accusation on him. Look what's going on. His sister's in pain. She's in tsar. She's krechten because it's tzara. So what's Moshe doing to help? He's just sitting there in the corner davening? Do something. Absolutely mind-boggling. They all know that there's no medical cure for her. The only way to heal her is with davening. Yet people are still going to have a complaint that, look at Moshe, he's just in the corner. He's just sitting in the corner talking to Hashem when he should be doing something about this. That's what he was dealing with. And because he knows that's the time as people will come up with, he has to adjust his actions accordingly. Rashi quotes a second shot. You know why he davened so short for Miriam? Davar acher, shelo yomer Yisrael. He doesn't want Bnei Yisrael to say about him. B'shvil achoso hu marach b'tfilah. Oh yeah, because it's his sister. That's why he offered a really long prayer. Aval b'shvilenu, when one of us has a relative who's sick, he just makes a quick mishaberach. Eino marach b'tfilah. He just does a quick, Hashem, please heal this person. That's it. But for his sister, look what he does. Look at that favoritism. Look at that nepotism. So Moshe is so sensitive to this, either because of the fact people are going to come up with this baseless, ridiculous accusation about he should be doing something else and he's just wasting his time davening for her, when there is really no medical cure he could do for her, or people are going to have a time they're going to say, yeah, for our relatives he offers a quick tefillah, but for his own, look how much time he spends. Because of that, Moshe adjusts his behavior accordingly and just says, Kel na rafan Allah. That's all I can do because of the circumstance that I'm in. Look what Moshe Rabbeinu was dealing with all those years in the wilderness. And there's more. Rashi's at the beginning of Devarim tell us more. When Moshe's recounting everything they went through in the wilderness, Rashi quotes other Divrei Chazal, telling us about some of the other trash that Moshe had to deal with all those years. This just opens our eyes and it opens a window into the life of Moshe Rabbeinu during those years in the Midbar. What it looked like, what he had to be sova, what he had to bear, the weight that was on his shoulders. But with all that, with all the sniping, he still loved Bnei Yisrael. That's absolutely incredible. It's not easy. We're not an easy people. I think we all recognize that. And it's not because we're not an easy people, it's not easy to love every single Jew. Yet Moshe Rabbeinu is the paradigm. He is the epitome of the Ohev Yisrael. Despite all these personal accusations, despite all these arrows that were slung at him, despite all the sniping that everybody did towards him, he loves Bnei Yisrael. And when Hashem wants to destroy them, Moshe's the first one. He's advocating for them. Where did this come from? This unbelievable lave, the heart that Moshe Rabbeinu had, how it was so wide, how he could embrace all of Klal Yisrael, even those who were sniping at him. This is really something for each and every one of us to try our best to emulate, because that's not our reflexive action. When people snipe at us, we want to get right back and give it back to them. Or next time they need a favor, don't come to me. That's not the way Moshe Rabbeinu behaved. He was such an Ohev Yisrael. And each and every one of us, we need to look to Moshe as our role model and to say to him, I have an obligation. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. I'm supposed to love each and every member of our extended family of Klal Yisrael. I'm going to do my best to try to do that. It's not going to be easy at times. It'll be so much easier when people are treating me with love and respect and all sorts of admiration. But that's not the norm. There's going to be people sniping. There's going to be people nipping and nitpicking me. And I'm going to try to love them as well. It's not easy. But Moshe Rabbeinu shows us it's possible. So I hope we can all look to Moshe Rabbeinu as our inspiration for how to be an Ohev Yisrael, despite the fact that we're not an easy people to always love. Let's do our best. Let's try our best to emulate Moshe Rabbeinu. Look to him as our role model. Look to him as the paradigm of someone who loved Klal Yisrael, despite whatever it was that he had to deal with. And if we can do that, if we can look to Moshe Rabbeinu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will make it easier for us. If we show we're making that effort, Hashem will make it easier for us. And we'll also be able to say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem, look how I'm relating. Look how I'm dealing with people who were not so nice to me. Hashem, I failed you numerous times. I'm honest. I know how many times I failed, and I haven't behaved towards you in the way that I should have. My relationship towards you has not been great. But look how I'm dealing with others. Please, Hashem, look how I'm dealing with others who haven't been great with me. And please Please, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, accept me back and treat me like a man. Love me, despite the fact I may have stepped on our relationship, because that's what I'm trying to do for others. And we know Hashem deals with us, mida keneged mida, measure for measure. If we could act this way towards others, we could ask Hashem to act this way towards us. Have a good Shabbos, everyone.